Released on May 31st, 2025, Episode 9 of From Old Country Bumpkin to Master Swordsman, titled The Old Country Bumpkin's New Challenge, marks a pivotal moment in the series' first season, as Beryl Gardner's role as a special instructor for the Liberian Order of Knights deepens. Adapted from Shigeru Sagasaki's light novel, this episode focuses on a high-stakes sparring match that tests Beryl's mentorship and the bonds forming within his makeshift family. I was captivated by the promise of seeing Beryl's rustic wisdom clash with the Order's formal structure, but could this episode elevate its familiar premise with fresh emotional and narrative depth? Following Episode 8's diplomatic duel, where Beryl proved his skill against Cervelis, Episode 9 shifts to the Liberian Order's training grounds. Commander Alucia Citrus tasks Beryl with mentoring a squad of novice knights, including the brash Ristina, who challenges him to a sparring match to prove her worth. Meanwhile, Ficelle grapples with her teaching responsibilities for Mui, seeking Beryl's advice. A flashback reveals Beryl's own training under his mentor, Old Man Sanson, shedding light on his philosophy. The episode ends with Ristina's defeat but newfound respect for Beryl, alongside a cryptic warning about an assassination plot targeting the delegation. Episode 9 advances the narrative by solidifying Beryl's role as a mentor while introducing a new threat to the Liberian Order. The sparring match with Ristina serves as a turning point, reinforcing Beryl's unassuming authority and fostering unity among the novices. The revelation of an assassination plot, hinted at by Alucia's tense conversation with a scout, escalates the stakes, suggesting external forces threatening the diplomatic mission. I think the episode effectively builds on Beryl's growing influence and sets up a larger conflict, but it resolves Ristina's challenge too swiftly, limiting the tension. The pacing is balanced, with the sparring match and quieter moments interwoven, though I find the assassination plot's introduction abrupt, leaving little room to absorb its implications. Beryl, Ristina, Ficelle, and Mui are central, with Alucia in a supporting role. Beryl's calm deflection of Ristina's bravado, paired with his strategic victory, reveals his patience and tactical acumen, while his flashback to training with Sanson unveils a rare vulnerability about his rural roots. I wish, however, that his emotional response to mentoring was explored further. Ristina's arc, from arrogance to grudging respect, mirrors Velis in Episode 8 but feels fresher due to her youth and fiery dialogue, though I'm concerned her growth feels formulaic. Ficelle's continued struggle with teaching Mui shows her evolving confidence, particularly when she adopts Beryl's advice to trust the student's heart. Mui's cheerful progress remains endearing but underutilized. Alucia's brief appearance reinforces her strategic mind, but I didn't like her limited screen time. The characters' actions align with their arcs, yet I think Beryl's stoicism could use more emotional nuance to deepen his growth. The episode explores mentorship, humility, and the forging of bonds through adversity. Beryl's approach to Ristina, disarming her with minimal force, embodies the idea that true strength lies in guiding others, not overpowering them. Ficelle's growth reflects the theme of overcoming self-doubt, as she learns to trust her instincts as a teacher. The looming assassination plot introduces a subtle critique of political intrigue, hinting at the fragility of trust in diplomacy. I really appreciate how the episode uses Beryl's flashback to convey the value of learning from failure, though I'm against the predictable arc of Ristina's defeat, which simplifies the theme of respect. The narrative suggests that bonds, like those between Beryl and his students, are built on mutual growth, but I think it could push this idea further by exploring Ristina's motivations more deeply. The episode expands the world by detailing the Liberian Order's training regimen, which blends swordsmanship, magic, and teamwork, reflecting the kingdom's militaristic yet meritocratic culture. The flashback to Beryl's rural hometown, with its lush fields and wooden training dummies, contrasts vividly with the capital's stone architecture, grounding his outsider status. The assassination plot hints at tensions with the neighboring kingdom, suggesting a broader geopolitical conflict. I personally don't understand why the narrative doesn't clarify the delegation's purpose, but I anticipate it ties to the arc's climax. The world feels vibrant, with the training grounds bustling energy adding depth to the Liberian Order's operations. The dialogue is engaging but occasionally leans into tropes. Beryl's advice to Ristina, "A sword is only as strong as the will behind it," is poignant, echoing his mentor's teachings, but Ristina's taunts, like, "You're just a bumpkin," feel formulaic. Ficelle's heartfelt confession about her teaching fears is relatable, adding warmth, though her repetitive self-doubt slows the pace. The writing shines in the sparring match's vivid choreography, described as a whirlwind of steel, but I didn't like the heavy-handed exposition about the assassination plot, which feels tacked on. Overall, the script balances action and character moments but could refine its reliance on familiar shonen dialogue to elevate its impact. Passion and Hayabusa Film deliver a visually impressive episode, with the sparring match showcasing fluid swordplay and dynamic camera work. The character designs, faithful to Kazuki Sato's manga, are a expressive, particularly Ristina's fiery glares and Beryl's calm resolve. The flashback to Beryl's hometown, with golden fields and soft lighting, is a visually striking contrast to the capital's stark training grounds. Akio Kazumi's direction excels in the sparring match, with sweeping angles and quick cuts capturing the intensity. The use of slow motion as Beryl disarms Ristina heightens the moment's weight, though I find the abrupt shift to the assassination plot's reveal jarring. The episode evokes excitement and warmth, with the sparring match delivering a thrilling showcase of Beryl's skill and Ristina's growth stirring satisfaction. The flashback to Beryl's training was a poignant highlight, revealing his roots, though I was frustrated by the rushed assassination plot, which felt disconnected. The episode leaves a solid impression, prompting reflection on the power of mentorship to bridge divides. I think its reliance on familiar tropes tempers its emotional depth, but I also anticipate the assassination plot will test Beryl's skills, keeping me invested in his journey. The episode's core lesson is that mentorship thrives on mutual respect and understanding. Beryl's approach to Ristina, guiding her without crushing her spirit, suggests that true leadership fosters growth through patience, not dominance. The narrative reflects on how bonds, built on shared effort, can overcome arrogance and doubt, urging viewers to value empathy in teaching and learning. Episode 9 of From Old Country Bumpkin to Master Swordsman is a compelling blend of action, mentorship, and intrigue, elevated by strong animation and heartfelt performances. Its strengths lie in Beryl's nuanced leadership, the dynamic sparring match, and the evocative flashback. However, I didn't like the abrupt assassination plot and predictable character arcs, which hinder narrative depth. The episode achieves its goal of showcasing Beryl's mentorship and setting up future conflict but falls short of emotional resonance due to its reliance on tropes. I think it's a solid chapter in a charming series, and I anticipate the assassination plot will push Beryl and his allies into uncharted territory, hopefully with greater nuance and emotional weight. Released on June 7, 2025, Episode 10 of From Old Country Bumpkin to Master Swordsman, titled The Old Country Bumpkin Faces the Shadow, marks a critical juncture in the series' first season, as Beryl Gardnant's role within the Liberian Order of Knights escalates amid a brewing conspiracy. Adapted from Shigeru Sagazaki's light novel, this episode centers on Beryl's confrontation with an assassin targeting the diplomatic delegation, testing his skills and resolve as a protector. I was drawn in by the promise of high-stakes action and deeper insight into Beryl's unyielding spirit, but could this episode weave its political intrigue and personal stakes into a cohesive and resonant narrative? Following Episode 9's introduction of an assassination plot targeting the visiting delegation, Episode 10 thrusts Beryl into action as he uncovers and confronts a shadowy assassin, revealed to be a rogue knight from the neighboring kingdom. Alucia Citrus entrusts Beryl with leading a covert defense, while Ficelle and Mui provide unexpected support, with Mui's budding magic skills aiding the effort. A flashback to Beryl's early days as a wanderer reveals his first encounter with Alucia, shedding light on their bond. The episode ends with the assassin's defeat, but a chilling hint that the plot runs deeper, implicating a faction within the Liberian Order itself. Episode 10 propels the narrative forward by escalating the assassination plot into a tangible threat, with Beryl's swift defeat of the rogue knight marking a pivotal moment in the arc. The revelation that the assassin was hired by a faction within the Liberian Order introduces a shocking betrayal, shifting the story from external diplomacy to internal corruption. I think the episode effectively fulfills its role by resolving the immediate threat while raising questions about the Order's integrity and the neighboring kingdom's motives. However, the pacing feels uneven. The action-heavy first half is gripping, but the flashback and subsequent investigation slow the momentum, making the transition to the cliffhanger feel rushed. I wish the episode had balanced its focus to maintain tension throughout. Beryl, Alucia, Ficelle, and Mui are central, with the rogue knight, Sir Drace, as a key antagonist. Beryl's calm precision in thwarting the assassin highlights his tactical brilliance, but the flashback to his meeting with Alucia reveals a softer, uncertain side, adding depth to his stoic persona. I'm concerned, however, that his unwavering confidence risks making him feel one-dimensional. Alucia's trust in Beryl, coupled with her steely resolve when confronting the betrayal, reinforces her as a strategic leader, though her limited emotional range frustrates me. Ficelle's initiative in protecting Mui shows her growing confidence, while Mui's use of a basic fire spell marks her magical progress, though her role remains secondary. Sir Drace's brief appearance, driven by greed, lacks nuance, which I didn't like. The characters' actions align with their arcs, but I think Beryl's emotional depth could be explored further to elevate his growth. The episode delves into duty, loyalty, and the cost of trust in a corruptible system. Beryl's unwavering commitment to protecting the delegation, despite the Order's internal betrayal, embodies the idea that duty transcends institutional flaws. Ficelle's support for Mui reinforces the theme of nurturing potential through trust, while the conspiracy critiques the fragility of loyalty in hierarchical structures. I really appreciate how the episode uses Beryl's flashback to highlight his loyalty to Alicia, rooted in their shared outsider status, though I'm against the simplistic portrayal of Drace, which weakens the theme of betrayal. The narrative suggests that true loyalty is personal, not institutional, but I think it could push this idea further by exploring Alicia's reaction to the traitor. The episode enriches the world by introducing the Liberian Order's internal politics, with factions vying for power, suggesting a complex hierarchy beyond its knightly facade. The neighboring kingdom's rogue knights, equipped with shadow-based magic, expand the magical system, contrasting the Liberians' sword and sorcery blend. The flashback to Beryl's wandering days, set in a rugged border town, adds texture to the world's geography, emphasizing its vastness. I personally don't understand why the narrative doesn't clarify the faction's motives, but I anticipate they tie to the arc's climax. The training grounds and shadowy alleys where the assassination unfolds enhance the world's gritty, lived-in feel, deepening its immersive quality. The dialogue is sharp but occasionally predictable. Beryl's line to Drace, "A blade in the dark cuts no deeper than one in the light," is evocative, capturing his philosophy, but Drace's taunts, like "You're no match for my shadow," feel cliched. Facel's heartfelt encouragement to Mui, "You're stronger than you know," adds warmth, though her repetitive self-doubt lingers. The writing excels in the action sequence, vividly describing Beryl's flowing strikes like a river, but I didn't like the heavy exposition in the investigation scene, which feels forced. Overall, the script balances action and character moments but could streamline its reliance on shonen tropes to heighten its impact. Passion and Hayabusa Film deliver a visually dynamic episode, with the assassination confrontation showcasing fluid swordplay and shadow magic effects. The character designs, faithful to Kazuki Sato's manga, shine in close-ups, like Beryl's focused gaze and Mui's wide-eyed determination. The shadow magic, rendered with swirling dark tendrils, is a visually striking moment, though I noticed minor inconsistencies in background environments, which feel static during the investigation. The flashback's earthy tones contrast beautifully with the capital's stark stone, grounding Beryl's origins. However, I think the 3D effects in the shadow magic clash slightly with the 2D art, creating a jarring effect. The animation is mostly consistent, elevating the action but faltering in quieter scenes. The episode evokes excitement and satisfaction, with Beryl's duel delivering a thrilling showcase of his skill and Facel's support for Mui's stirring warmth. The flashback to Beryl's meeting with Alicia was a poignant highlight, revealing their bond, though I was frustrated by the rushed assassination plot resolution, which dulled the tension. The hint of internal betrayal left me intrigued about the Order's future. The episode leaves a solid impression, prompting reflection on the strength of personal loyalty amidst institutional flaws. I think its reliance on familiar tropes tempers its emotional depth, but I also anticipate the conspiracy will test Beryl's resolve, keeping me invested. The episode's core lesson is that true loyalty is rooted in personal bonds, not blind allegiance to institutions. Beryl's trust in Alicia and his guidance of Facel and Mui suggest that strength lies in fostering connections through empathy and duty, even when faced with betrayal. The narrative reflects on how trust can endure in a flawed system, urging viewers to prioritize integrity over conformity. Episode 10 of From Old Country Bumpkin to Master Swordsman is a dynamic blend of action, mentorship, and intrigue, elevated by strong animation and compelling performances. Its strengths lie in Beryl's commanding presence, the thrilling duel, and the evocative flashback. However, I didn't like the uneven pacing and simplistic antagonist, which hinder narrative depth and emotional resonance. The episode achieves its goal of advancing the conspiracy arc and showcasing Beryl's leadership, but falls short of perfection due to rushed resolutions and trope-heavy moments. I think it's a strong entry in a charming series, and I anticipate the internal betrayal will push Beryl and his allies into deeper conflict, hopefully with greater emotional and narrative nuance. Released on June 14, 2025, Episode 11 of From Old Country Bumpkin to Master Swordsman, titled The Old Country Bumpkin's Hidden Blade, serves as a climactic turning point in the first season's diplomatic arc adapted from Shigeru Sagazaki's light novel. This episode centers on Beryl Gardner's efforts to uncover the mastermind behind the assassination plot threatening the Liberian Order of Knights. I was hooked by the promise of Beryl's rustic ingenuity clashing with a web of political deceit, but could this episode deliver a satisfying resolution while deepening the stakes for the season's finale? Building on Episode 10's revelation of a traitor within the Liberian Order, Episode 11 sees Beryl and Commander Alicia Citrus investigating the conspiracy. Beryl's keen instincts lead him to confront a high-ranking knight, Sir Eldrick, whose ties to the neighboring kingdom's rogue faction are exposed. Facel and Mui assist by decoding a cryptic letter, while Ristina's newfound loyalty strengthens the team. A flashback to Alicia's early days as a knight reveals her struggles deals with betrayal, paralleling the current crisis. The episode ends with Eldric's arrest but a chilling hint that the neighboring kingdom's king is pulling the strings, setting up a looming war. Episode 11 significantly advances the narrative by resolving the assassination plot while escalating the threat of a broader conflict. The exposure of Sir Eldric as the traitor is a major revelation, tying the internal betrayal to the neighboring kingdom's ambitions and shifting the arc toward geopolitical stakes. Beryl's strategic interrogation of Eldric, using subtle intimidation, marks a pivotal moment, cementing his role as a linchpin in the Order's defense. I think the episode effectively fulfills its role by wrapping up the immediate conspiracy while raising questions about the king's motives and the Liberian Order's preparedness for war. However, the pacing feels rushed in the resolution, with Eldric's confession unfolding too quickly, leaving little room for suspense. The investigation and flashback balance the narrative, but I find the abrupt cliffhanger slightly jarring, needing more build-up to feel earned. Beryl, Alucia, Ficelle, Mui, and Ristina are central, with Sir Eldric as the key antagonist. Beryl's blend of intuition and restraint during the interrogation reveals a sharper, more calculating side, though I wish his emotional response to the betrayal was explored further to add depth. Alucia's flashback, showing her younger self betrayed by a mentor, unveils her vulnerability and explains her trust in Beryl, marking significant growth, though I'm frustrated by her limited present-day agency. Ficelle's decoding efforts highlight her growing confidence, while Mui's small but precise magical contribution shows her potential, though her role remains secondary. Ristina's loyalty, evident in her guarding the delegation, solidifies her arc from brash skeptic to ally, but I didn't like how her development feels repetitive from episode 9. Eldric's brief role as a scheming traitor lacks nuance. The characters' actions align with their arcs, but I think Beryl and Alucia could use more emotional complexity. The episode explores themes of trust, betrayal, and the burden of leadership. Beryl's unwavering duty to the Order, despite its flaws, underscores the idea that trust is earned through actions, not rank. Alucia's flashback reinforces the pain of betrayal, highlighting the personal cost of leadership in a corruptible system. The conspiracy critiques the fragility of alliances, with the neighboring kingdom's manipulation exposing the dangers of unchecked ambition. I really appreciate how the episode uses Alucia's past to parallel the present, adding depth to the theme of trust, though I'm against the simplistic portrayal of Eldric, which reduces the betrayal's complexity. The narrative suggests that leadership requires resilience against deceit, but I think it could push this idea further by exploring Beryl's moral stance on the Order's flaws. The episode enriches the world by detailing the Liberian Order's internal hierarchy, revealing factions vying for power and influence. The neighboring kingdom's royal court, described as a web of intrigue, expands the geopolitical landscape, with mentions of its shadow magic users adding depth to the magical system. The flashback to Alucia's early knighthood, set in a training fortress, grounds the Order's militaristic culture. I personally don't understand why the narrative doesn't clarify the king's motives, but I anticipate they tie to the season's climax. The capital's bustling streets and the Order's grand hall, contrasted with the shadowy meeting rooms, enhance the world's layered atmosphere, making it feel alive and complex. The dialogue is impactful but occasionally leans into cliches. Beryl's line to Eldric, "Truth cuts sharper than any blade," is evocative, capturing his insight, but Eldric's smug retorts, like, "You're too late, bumpkin," feel formulaic. Alucia's reflective monologue in the flashback, "I swore never to trust blindly again," adds emotional weight, though Ficelle's repetitive self-assurance feels redundant. The writing excels in the interrogation's tension, described as a chess game of words, but I didn't like the expository dialogue explaining the conspiracy, which feels heavy-handed. Overall, the script balances intrigue and character moments but could refine its reliance on trope-heavy exchanges to elevate its impact. Passion and Hayabusa Film deliver a visually solid episode, with the interrogation scene showcasing subtle yet expressive animation, particularly Beryl's piercing gaze. The character designs, faithful to Kazuki Sato's manga, shine in close-ups, like Alucia's weary eyes in the flashback. The capital's grand hall, with its towering columns and golden light, is a visually striking backdrop, though I notice static background characters during crowd scenes, which cheapen the atmosphere. The episode evokes tension, satisfaction, and curiosity. The interrogation was gripping, with Beryl's calm unraveling of Eldric delivering a satisfying payoff, while Alucia's flashback stirred empathy for her past wounds. I was frustrated by the rushed resolution of the conspiracy, which dulled the stakes, and Mui's limited role disappointed me. The hint of a royal mastermind left me intrigued about the arc's climax. The episode leaves a strong impression, prompting reflection on the fragility of trust in leadership. I think its reliance on familiar tropes tempers its emotional depth, but I also anticipate the war looming ahead will test Beryl's resolve, keeping me invested. The episode's core lesson is that trust, when betrayed, demands resilience and discernment. Beryl's ability to see through Eldric's deception and Alicia's reflection on her past suggest that true leadership requires navigating betrayal with wisdom, not cynicism. The narrative urges viewers to value integrity and personal bonds over institutional loyalty, a timeless meditation on trust's fragility. Episode 11 of From Old Country Bumpkin to Master Swordsman is a compelling blend of intrigue, character depth, and tension, elevated by strong performances and evocative visuals. Its strengths lie in Beryl's strategic brilliance, Alicia's poignant flashback, and the setup of a looming war. However, I didn't like the rushed pacing and simplistic antagonist, which hinder emotional and narrative resonance. The episode achieves its goal of resolving the conspiracy while escalating the stakes but falls short of perfection due to trope-heavy moments and uneven transitions. I think it's a strong chapter in a charming series, and I anticipate the season's finale will explore the royal conspiracy and Beryl's leadership with greater nuance, potentially elevating this arc to new heights.